The White House mailroom received thousands of letters daily in 1985. Most were sorted, categorized, and answered by staff with form responses. But on a cold February morning, mail clerk Jennifer Martinez found herself holding a letter that made her hands shake. The envelope was addressed in shaky handwriting, "To President Reagan, please, I have nowhere else to turn." Inside, on notebook paper torn from a spiral binding, was a message that would soon reach the president himself and change how America saw its commander-in-chief. "Dear Mr. President, my name is Sergeant First Class Marcus Thompson. I served 3 tours in Vietnam. I'm being evicted next week. The bank is taking my house. My wife Linda died of cancer 2 years ago. The medical bills took everything. The VA says I don't qualify for additional benefits. I'm not asking for a handout. I've worked construction since I came home, until my back gave out last year. I'm 47 years old. I've applied for 43 jobs. Nobody wants a broken-down vet who can't lift anymore. I have a daughter, Emily. She's 16, honor student. Wants to be a doctor. She doesn't know we're losing the house. I've been pretending to go to work, spending my days at the library, filling out applications. I fought for this country. Lost friends for this country. Tommy Morrison died in my arms. Outside Khe Sanh, Bobby Chun took a bullet meant for me. And now I can't even keep a roof over my daughter's head. I don't know what I'm asking for. Maybe just for someone to know we exist. Emily saw you on TV and said you looked kind. Said you looked like someone who listens. So I'm writing this at 3 a.m. because I can't sleep anymore and thought maybe someone might hear us. Respectfully, Marcus Thompson, serial number 52448891. Jennifer Martinez broke protocol. Instead of filing the letter in standard correspondence, she walked it directly to the Chief of Staff's office. Within hours, it was on Reagan's desk. Reagan read it that evening in the residence. Nancy found him at his desk, the letter in his hands, his reading glasses foggy. She'd seen him emotional before, but this was different. "Nancy," he said quietly, "how many Marcus Thompsons are out there? How many veterans are we failing?" Nancy read the letter, her own eyes filling. "What are you going to do?" Reagan was already reaching for his phone. "First, I'm going to make sure this man keeps his house. Then I'm going to find out why a soldier who bled for America is being told his wounds don't count." The next morning, Reagan did something unprecedented. He cleared his afternoon schedule. His staff protested. There were meetings with congressional leaders, a diplomatic reception. "Cancel them," Reagan said. "This afternoon, I have more important business." At 2 p.m. on February 15, 1985, a black government sedan pulled up to a modest house in Arlington, Virginia. Marcus Thompson was in his garage, going through boxes deciding what to sell, when his daughter Emily ran in. Dad, there are men in suits outside. They say the president is here." Marcus thought she was joking, but he followed her to the front yard and froze. Walking up his cracked driveway, flanked by Secret Service, was Ronald Reagan. Marcus's military training kicked in. He straightened, ignoring the pain in his back, and saluted. Reagan returned the salute, then stepped forward and embraced the stunned veteran. "Sergeant Thompson," Reagan said, loud enough for the gathering neighbors to hear, "I got your letter. I'm here to apologize." "Sir?" "A man who served 3 tours, who lost friends defending freedom. That man should never have to write a letter begging for help." "The failure isn't yours, Sergeant. It's mine." Emily stood on the porch, tears streaming down her face, as the president continued. "I've made some calls. The VA will be reviewing your case immediately. I've also spoken to some people about employment. Turns out the White House needs someone with your experience to help liaison with veteran affairs. The job's yours if you want it." Marcus's legs nearly gave out. "Mr. President, I don't know what to say." "Say you'll take the job. Say you'll help me make sure no veteran ever has to write a letter like yours again." Reagan turned to Emily. "You." Must be the future doctor. Your father tells me you're an honor student. You know what? That desire to heal, you got that from him. He's been healing and serving his whole life. Then Reagan did something that made every photographer scramble for their cameras. He walked to the "For Sale by Bank" sign on the lawn and pulled it out of the ground. This house belongs to an American hero, and it's going to stay that way. The neighbors began to applaud. Marcus Thompson, the tough veteran who'd survived 3 tours in hell, broke down completely. Reagan held him, whispering, "You carried there. Dog tags home. Let me help carry you now." The story could have ended there. But Reagan meant what he said about no veteran having to write such a letter again. Back at the White House, he convened an emergency meeting with veterans. Marcus Thompson was there, along with 5 other veterans from the D.C. area, each with their own story of bureaucratic nightmares. "Gentlemen," Reagan began, "I've been commander-in-chief for 5 years, and I failed you. We send young men to war with promises, and we break those promises when they come home. That ends today." Over the next 6 hours, Reagan listened to stories of VA hospitals with month-long waits, of disability claims denied on technicalities, of suicide rates no one wanted to discuss. Marcus found his voice, telling the group about Bobby Chun. He was 19, from San Francisco. Wanted to be an engineer. "He died saving my life. We can do better than that." Reagan took notes himself. By the end, he had 17 pages of problems and proposed solutions. The next day, Reagan went on national television and told Marcus Thompson's story. He read the letter word for word. "Last week, I met a hero," Reagan said. "And when he came home, his country failed him. Tonight, I'm announcing executive actions to streamline VA benefits, to prioritize job training that leads to jobs, and to ensure no veteran loses their home while fighting for benefits they've earned. But more than that, I'm asking every American to remember that supporting our troops doesn't end when the war does." The response was overwhelming. Donations poured in to veteran organizations. Employers called offering jobs. Letters flooded in from veterans thanking Reagan for seeing them. Marcus Thompson took the job at the White House. For the next 3 years, he served as Reagan's conscience on veteran affairs. Every policy that affected veterans went through Marcus first. Emily Thompson got a full scholarship to Georgetown University. She became a doctor, specializing in treating PTSD in veterans. At her graduation, Reagan was there, saluting Marcus as Emily received her diploma. The Veterans Benefits Improvement Act of 1985 provided billions in additional support. Suicide rates among veterans dropped for the first time in a decade. Homelessness decreased by 30%. But perhaps the most lasting impact was cultural. Reagan's visit to Marcus Thompson's house changed how America talked about its warriors. It became okay to admit vulnerability. It became patriotic to help veterans, not just thank them. 3 weeks after the visit, Reagan arranged another surprise. Marcus was at his new desk when asked to come to the Oval Office. Inside were Lou and David Chen, Bobby's parents from San Francisco. "You have Bobby's eyes now," Liu Chun said, taking Marcus's face in her hands. Sad but kind. He chose right person to save. What followed was 3 hours of stories. The Chuns brought photos, letters Bobby had written home. Marcus shared stories of their son's humor, his brilliance, his bravery. At the end, David Chun pulled out Bobby's high school diploma. "He never got to use. Maybe you use for the degree? Make our boy proud?" Marcus broke down completely. The president held him while Bobby Chun's parents held them both. The Chuns adopted Marcus and Emily as family. They attended Marcus's graduation. From Georgetown, he enrolled part-time, finishing the degree Bobby never could. Emily called them grandparents. Years later, at Reagan's funeral, Marcus Thompson stood in the honor guard. Emily stood beside him, now Dr. Emily Thompson. running a revolutionary PTSD treatment program. They were approached by a young Marine. "Mr. Thompson, I'm Robert Chun. Bobby was my uncle. I enlisted because of your stories. Because I wanted to be like Uncle Bobby, like you." As they walked away from the cemetery, Emily took her father's arm. Reagan showed America that every warrior has a story, every family has sacrifices, every promise matters. They drove home to the house in Arlington, the one Reagan had saved. On the lawn was a new sign, "Home of SFC Marcus Thompson, U.S. Army, Ret. Wounded in action, healed by community. All warriors welcome here," and they were. Veterans would stop by to talk, to sit with someone who understood. "Reagan taught me something," Marcus would tell them. "Asking for help isn't weakness. It's the first step in becoming strong enough to help others." Every veteran who found hope in that house, every family kept together, every suicide prevented. They all traced back to a letter written at 3 a.m. and read by a president who chose to act. Reagan's surprise support for a veteran didn't just leave the nation in tears. It reminded America that no warrior stands alone. One letter, one visit, one president who understood that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is pull up a sign and declare, "This ends now," but the story had deeper roots than that February afternoon. Reagan's connection to veterans began with his own father, Jack Reagan, who had served in World War. One young Dutch would find his father sitting in darkness, wrestling with memories he couldn't share. "They don't want to hear about the trenches," Jack would mutter into his whiskey. "They want us to come home and pretend it never happened." That morning before visiting Marcus, Reagan had driven to Arlington Cemetery alone. He'd found the graves of Tommy Morrison and Bobby Chun, the men Marcus mentioned in his letter. At Bobby's grave, he left his father's WWI service medal. "One warrior to another," he whispered. "I'll take care of Marcus." When Reagan arrived at the Thompson house, neighbors noticed details that never made the news. How he removed his suit jacket despite the cold, saying a man should never be overdressed when visiting a hero. How he spent an hour looking at Marcus's service photos, memorizing names and faces. "Tell me about Bobby Chun," Reagan said, studying a photo of a young Asian American soldier. Marcus's voice broke. "Smartest guy in our unit. Parents immigrated from China, worked in a laundry. He was walking point when he saw a sniper drawing on me. Didn't yell. That would have given the sniper time. Just stepped left, took the bullet meant for me. Died at 19, apologizing for bleeding on my uniform." Reagan wept openly. What were his last words? Asked me to tell his parents he wasn't scared, that he was proud to be American. Then asked me to finish college for him. "Did you?" Marcus shook his head. "Couldn't afford it after I got back." "Then we're fixing that too," Reagan declared. "You're going to finish that degree. For Bobby, for Emily to see it's never too late to honor a promise." The impact of Reagan's visit was immediate. That night, the White House received over 10,000 calls from veterans sharing their stories, civilians wanting to help. One call stood out. Liu Chun from San Francisco, Bobby's mother. "We want to meet the man our Bobby saved." The meeting 3 weeks later was profound. Liu Chun walked straight to Marcus, took his face in her hands. "You have Bobby's eyes now, sad but kind." The Chuns brought photos, letters, Bobby's dreams of becoming an engineer. At the end, David Chun gave Marcus Bobby's high school diploma and Barclay acceptance letter. "Use for your degree. Make our boy proud." Marcus enrolled at Georgetown that fall, graduating at 51 with the Chuns in the front row. Emily called them her grandparents. The two families became one, bound by loss and love. Reagan's policy changes were revolutionary. The Veterans Benefits Improvement Act restructured how America thought about veteran care. Mental health services became standard, not stigmatized. Marcus became Reagan's weapon against bureaucratic indifference. When Congress balked at funding, Reagan would invite skeptical representatives to lunch with Marcus and other veterans. Opposition melted when faced with real stories from real warriors. One senator came prepared to mock the spending as government waste. After 2 hours with Marcus and 3 Wisconsin veterans, he emerged shaken. "I've been looking at numbers so long I forgot they represent people," he told reporters. Emily, watching her father transform from despair to purpose, changed her career path. Reagan wrote her recommendation letter for Georgetown. Emily Thompson understands that healing requires not just medical knowledge, but the wisdom to see past the wound to the warrior. As Reagan's presidency ended, he ensured the infrastructure would outlast him. The Marcus Thompson Veterans Advocacy Office became a permanent White House position. His last official act regarding veterans was creating the National Day of Recognition for veteran families. Marcus stood beside him as he signed it, along with the Chuns and dozens of veterans. "That letter you wrote saved me too," Reagan told Marcus privately. "I was losing myself in politics, forgetting why it mattered. You reminded me leadership is about seeing one person clearly and responding with everything you have." Years later, as Alzheimer's stole Reagan's memories, he might forget world leaders and summits. But he remembered veterans. Nancy would find him holding the photo from Arlington, Reagan pulling the "for sale" sign from Marcus's lawn. "Good man," he'd mumble. "Saved him. He saved others." At Reagan's state funeral in 2004, Marcus Thompson stood with the honor guard in full dress uniform. Emily stood beside him, now Dr. Emily Thompson. Having treated thousands of veterans with PTSD, her revolutionary program drew from watching her father's journey, understanding that healing invisible wounds required community, purpose, and dignity. After the service, a young Marine approached them. Robert Chun, Bobby's nephew, stood in dress blues. "I enlisted because of the stories. Because I wanted to be like Uncle Bobby, like you, Mr. Thompson." Marcus couldn't speak. Emily answered for them. "Both. He'd be proud. They'd all be proud." The house in Arlington became a landmark of sorts. Marcus had installed a simple plaque. "Sometimes the most powerful thing a leader can do is show up, listen, and act." Veterans would stop by, some famous. Most not. They'd sit on the porch where Reagan had stood, sharing stories with Marcus. "Pain shared is pain halved," Marcus would tell them. "That's what the president taught me. We're not meant to carry these burdens alone." Dr. Emily Thompson's treatment center bore a photo in the lobby, Reagan embracing her father while her teenage self watched from the porch. Underneath, a quote from her graduation speech: "My father taught me that warriors heal warriors. President Reagan taught me that a nation heals by remembering its promises." The Marcus Thompson Act, passed in 1990, provided housing protection for veterans in crisis. No veteran would lose their home while waiting for benefits. The law's preamble included Reagan's words: "A nation that sends its young to war must welcome them home with more than parades." By 2010, the Thompson Foundation had helped 10,000 veterans transition from war to peace. Emily often told the story of February 15, 1985. One letter, one visit, one president who chose compassion over schedule. That's how change happens, one human moment at a time. Marcus lived until 2018, spending his final years ensuring no Vietnam veteran felt forgotten as his generation aged. His last public appearance was at a dedication for the Bobby Chun Memorial Scholarship at Berkeley, funded by tech entrepreneurs who'd heard the story and wanted to honor the immigrant soldier who died for his brother in arms. Lou Chun, 93 years old, spoke at the dedication. "My Bobby saved one life but created thousands. Every veteran Marcus helped, every patient Emily healed, every family kept together, all branches from the tree my son planted with his sacrifice." Today, the house still stands. The new owners were surprised to discover veterans still stopped by, leaving small tokens, unit patches, coins, notes. They learned to keep coffee ready and chairs on the porch. Inside, framed on the wall, hangs Marcus's original letter to Reagan, with the president's handwritten note at the bottom. No soldier who carries America's wounds should carry them alone. We are our brother's keepers, always. Our below it, added by Emily after her father's death. Another frame holds a photo from that February afternoon, Reagan pulling up the sign while Marcus salutes and Emily watches from the porch. The caption, in her handwriting, "The day America remembered its warriors." But perhaps the truest legacy lives in the thousands of moments that followed. Every time a veteran found the courage to ask for help. Every time a civilian chose to listen, rather than look away. Every time a politician remembered that war's true cost is measured not in dollars, but in damaged souls trying to find their way home. Reagan's surprise visit to a veteran facing eviction became a watershed moment in how America treated its warriors. Not because of the policies, though those saved lives. Not because of the publicity, though that opened hearts. But because one leader chose to see one soldier's pain as a national emergency worth his personal attention. In his final lucid letter before Alzheimer's claimed him completely, Reagan wrote to Marcus, "I've met kings and premiers, but my proudest moments were the quiet ones, pulling up that sign, holding you while you cried, watching Emily become the healer she was meant to be. You reminded me that the presidency isn't about power, but about people. Thank you for that gift." Marcus kept that letter in his wallet until he died. Emily has it now, framed in her office where she still treats veterans, still carries forward the work that began with a desperate letter and a president who chose to answer it with his whole heart. The tears have long dried from that February day in 1985, but the ripples continue in every veteran who knows they're not alone, in every policy that puts warriors before politics, in every American who understands that patriotism means bringing all our soldiers home, not just in body, but in spirit. One letter, one visit, one moment when compassion trumped protocol, and a nation that learned to see its veterans not as statistics or burdens, but as the broken heroes they are, deserving not just thanks but action, not just parades but presence, not just words but the steady support of a grateful people who refuse to let them carry their wounds alone.